Well, hey all, and welcome back. And I got another big box in from the Show Z store, and I am dying to get into this. This is the IN Era Plus Ruling. This is in the same vein as the Gravity Judge, where you have a metal frame and a plastic metal kit goes around it. But I am really hoping this figure is to 2023 what the Gravity Judge was for me last year. But we're not going to spend too much time on the packaging. We have a nice illustration here. We've got a picture of the frame on the side. And then on the back, we have some of the configurations. We have a base mech with some additional backpack cannons, large handguns, and just a load of configurations. But let's go ahead and get this guy out of the packaging and see if he's worthy of our collection. And out of the packaging, here we have the inner frame, which comes in its own box. We have a little card here, which has a plastic cover. I'm not entirely sure what this is for, other than just being a card for display, but the part that I don't understand is why we have this film here. We have some metallic stickers here for the eyes and various accents. I'm very happy to see that we have some water slide decals. I am not a fan of regular stickers, especially on nicer kits, and so we have some water slides here that we will apply. We have the manual. I really enjoy that box art. We have it on here, and then we'll be able to keep it. One thing that stands out here is this translucent piece of blue plastic on the face. I've seen pictures without it, and I'm kind of thinking I will not be using it, though I will try to show you guys what it looks like. But for all the pieces we have, instructions actually aren't that overwhelming. Now let's go ahead and get the frame out of the package. It has some good heft to it. And it comes packed like so. Got some toes that fold down. And what I will do here, let's get it to stand. It's going to need its armor to stand pretty well. While there's some similarities, I do think this is different from the Gravity Judge inner frame. I'll show a video side by side here, so you can see the difference between the two. And then we can go over some articulation. We have some movement at the knees. Those parts are a little bit loose, but that could be changing once we put parts in there, the model parts in there. We've got some stuff that moves back here. We have double jointed knee, rotation at the ankle, we have toe bend, foot bend, hips can go forward, back, rotation, outward, rotation at the waist. We have a double joint in there for front and back, depending on how armor allows. There is no neck joint on here currently. We have shoulders with butterflies, rotation, up and down, rotation of the bicep, double jointed elbow. This actually moves a bit easier, bending at the wrist. It actually moves a little bit easier than the Gravity Judge frame did as well. So this could be easier to pose in the end. But let's go ahead and check out the runners for this kit. As you can see here, this kit comes with quite a few runners. We have multitudes of various grays here, some blacks for the stand. This is going to be a very dark toned model kit, and so the challenge is going to be how any accent makes the colors pop and any details we can bring out through panel lining. And then lastly, here we have some actual color runners. We have a translucent teal, we have some red, orange, this bluish color, and some white. Before we talk about the actual finished kit, I want to talk about the build itself, since building gunpla is really a big part of it and not just the final piece. The first thing is the majority of this kit is undergated. Some things make sense, others do not. This white piece here is an example of very poor gate design. Overall, the instructions are good. There's just a few mistakes. An important note, they did not draw this peg on this part for the instructions. You do need to keep it. Also, this section is labeled wrong, but it's easy enough to figure out because the other part is labeled correctly. Also, this part can be installed both ways, so make sure you do the same for both shoulders. The plastic quality seems good, but each one snips differently. I don't know if the dye is a factor or if the plastics are different. The white plastic snips easily and well, where the grays tend to mash and tear when snipping. I tried multiple snips but found not snipping all the way, then using a file and sandpaper to remove them was the cleanest. This means this kit will require more time and effort due to the undergating, and I would not rush build this kit. Most of the kit fits together well, but here are a few problem areas. This white cover did not fit easily over the orange vent. I found it best to take off the whole panel from the leg and fit it. It required the right angle and force, but I was able to do it without any damage. The missile pod was a pain to install. I suggest doing this before installing the shoulder guard section. The shoulder guards also do not sit together as flush as they should. They could use another peg, but glue may be the best solution. On the note of glue, this chest piece should be glued to the surrounding part. Mine did not stay connected. I may have trimmed too much, so I had to add glue to secure. So far, this is the only part actually glued in this build. If you see here, the eyes reflect on the white plastic, and it doesn't look right. If you use the face shield, it'll be less of an issue, but I do not care for it and I'd rather have the face exposed. I took a paint pen and I painted the underside of the eyes to make it look more cohesive. I also panel lined the face and the head parts before fully assembling because they sort of cover each other. On the topic of panel lining, you can panel line on the sprue before building, but I waited till the end since many parts were covered when you were finished. I used black on most parts, brown on the orange parts, and gray on the white parts. Here's a quick demo. I panel lined this white section of the weapon and you can see it really brings out the details easily and quickly. It stands out much more than the unlined version you can see next to it. That pretty much covers my build notes. Now let's move on to assembly and articulation. Now here are all the individual components for Ruling. Panel lined, stickered up, and ready to go. So let's go ahead and assemble them and check out the robot mode. And here is Ruling in all his glory. Now, you might notice that this has not been decaled yet. It does have the basic stickers, but I have not put on the water slides. And the reason for that being is, I kind of don't think it needs it. Like I've seen a couple photos of it and they do look good. You can see that here from their promo. However, I'm going to enjoy it for a little bit without any kind of decals. I think right now, just as is, it looks really good. But first of all, let's just get a look at the aesthetics of this. This thing is just awesome looking. Now, any grief I had while I was assembling it was gone once I put it together. I just sat here and stared at it for like 10 minutes straight, admiring all the details that this thing has. While Ruling is a unique design, it does take some influences from other Gundam. I kind of see some elements of the Verde Buster Gundam and the Calamity Gundam in this. It is such a cool design, and there's some visual things here they had done that I just thought were brilliantly clever. I would love to see more of them. And I think my absolute favorite thing is the way this ankle is handled. It is just such a cool way of having the ankle blend into the foot and still being able to retain articulation. Now, I do have this guy open up, and the reason being is some of the panels are a little trickier to open. And of course, this being a model kit on a metal frame, it will be a little finicky. So avoiding the risk of knocking things off while I review it, I do have some panels open here. And what I do have is we have these shoulder pieces open. This is about as far as they go. And inside, you can see detailing of most likely missiles. They remind me of some missiles from the old Macross series, but they could also be battery packs, whatever your imagination is. And we have a very similar design of the same kind of thing in the chest and up here. So this has a really cool hinge that allows you to open in different ways. It also has details underneath where I think if you wanted to panel line it, you could. But we have this hinge system here that allows you to move it down and lock it. And it gives you a few different configurations. So that's open and close. These just pop down. These are a little bit harder to open. Go ahead and close that. And the chest one just pops forward. And then we have the closed version, which is also very cool. Now I'm going to just start top to bottom. We have head articulation. We have a ball joint with a base that also rotates. So you can kind of move forward, back, side to side. So you can get a lot of expression in the head movement. And there's enough clearance around to do it. You just have to be careful with the antenna and how they collide with the shoulders. A lot more movement than you'd expect considering how bulky this guy is. Then on the side here, we have thrusters that can move. These are something that actually kind of easy to knock out, which you might want to glue, but I've not done it yet. There is an under panel here to protect the arm. We do have a little bit of collision with the elbow in this area, so that's something that you'll have to be aware of. The shoulder itself has its own articulation, so it can move outward on its own, but also inside, the butterfly joint moves the arm out, and it moves up and down. So you have all these little joints working together that allows you to get some poses out of it, and the shoulders not being a major obstruction. I think that's pretty cool. Then we go to the back here. We have this piece that moves up and reveals a thruster. The thruster can move up and down. Then if we go into the arms, so this can rotate because of the way it's set up. The arm has rotation at the shoulder. It has full shoulder movement independently of this. We have a double jointed elbow, which looks really good. I like how you can see the metal frame come through and all the mechanics. We have rotation at the forearm, which is pretty cool. Then we have this wrist joint that moves up, and then the wrist is on its own ball joint. So you can get some really cool dynamic curves in here, some very anime Obari style arm movement. So both arms have that. Then I'm going to move these out so we can try to see the torso. Now, if you remember from the beginning, we saw that the torso actually can move quite a bit. But when armor is put on there, that's all going to change, of course. And so there's a very clever thing here, is these panels are on their own joint so that when you do your ab crunches, you maintain that solid look, that one piece here, but you're still able to get articulation. So I think that is a very, very clever design. We don't have a lot of movement forward and back because of all the armor, but we do have some. We can go back. We have waist rotation. And even though the inner frame has a lot more articulation, that's really all we can get once all the armor is put on. Let's move the arms out. And then we can see the skirts here. So this skirt can move them down. It is on its own joint. There's another joint here that moves left and right, and it's on a ball joint as well. So that gives you a lot of flexibility for posing these legs. The front skirt is on two joints. We have one that goes in the base of the skirt and one that goes into the frame itself. Also giving you a lot of clearance for forward movement. And then when we go to the rear, we have sort of the same deal. But it's really, actually it's a little bit less one. It's a simple hinge that goes backward. So it's still pretty good. It gives you plenty of clearance, but you're not going to get as much movement out of it as you do the other pieces. Now on the back here, there is a door, which is a little tricky to open. So I've got this tool here. And this is where you can put the stand. So I like that it has a way of hiding that, but you just have to be aware you might have to get something there to get it out. We have a port for our backpack. And then down here, I did think about doing the legs without the armor on, just to show you guys what those do, but I'm going to take the risk of doing it with everything connected. So we have, typical joints, forward, back, out, rotation. But what's really cool here is when we, see, there goes the first piece. Not a big deal, just pops back in here. So anyway, when we bend, you can see how the thigh opens up and exposes this detail. And this knee piece moves forward as well because it's the way it's hinged. So all this works together to give you this really, really cool dynamic leg that opens up as you do that. I think that's really awesome. The joint's really good in there. It holds pretty tight. And the only thing I would suggest is when you're doing it is that you hold from the base if you can, just because with these moving pieces, you don't want to knock anything off. And then when we go over here, the last portion would be the ankles. And I'm trying to get a good way to grab this guy so I don't knock anything off. So, as I mentioned, we have the skirt here. Now, it is articulated, and it can move around enough to give you a lot of toe movement. but then also create that single form there when you push it down. Foot articulation is pretty standard, and there goes another piece. So the toe goes down quite far, which could be cool for some poses. Goes forward, back, and side to side. Now there's not a lot of room for the armor, but these do move out so that you can get plenty of movement there. You just have to make sure you keep everything in there from being knocked apart while you pose it. So, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into all the accessories. And the first of accessories I want to talk about are the hands. We have a nice variety of hands. And I'm going to compare this a lot to probably Gravity Judge as well as Bandai stuff. But I will say they got the hands right on this. We have a variety of closed hands that allow you to have an angled hold, a standard grip, and then a trigger version. So there's 2 of each of these. And then in addition to that, we have 2 really cool splayed hands. The details are good. They assemble well, they hold together well. And then of course on the figure we have some closed fists, which are fine. I think actually everything looks good about them, but I do not really love the inner area. I've noticed more and more kits are doing this, even Bandai, and I think there's a better way to handle the inner portion of the hand. But it still looks good in posing, and you can always turn it down if that bothers you and you don't really notice it. And next we can talk about weapons. We have these really cool blasters that can be held in the hands, and they also attach to the backpack. So we have essentially 2 of everything. But yeah, these are nicely detailed. They have a little gimmick here where there's a slot you can grab onto, and then you have a scope that comes out. So these are pretty cool. And then we have 2 long-range weapons. So we've got a handle here. It could be a little problematic, I think, if you're going to try to hold it. I really don't think the hands will hold it in a firing pose, so these are going to be mostly used on the backpack. But this also has some nice detailing. We have lots of little areas in here as a little panel line that really stand out. A few sticker accents, some clear pieces on the sight here. I like the handle, or I guess that would actually be the clip, but it has the brace here, which makes it look like a handle. The only gripe I think I have is I would have liked to seen a black sticker or something to go in there inside the barrel of the gun, or even a reflective sticker to make it look like it's charging up and get ready to blast. We have a handful of combining parts. This one actually looks like little mechanical bits that will actually hold some of the stuff together when you have it in the backpack mode. We also have 2 other weapons. This one has a bit of a thruster on the back, and it's articulated, so it opens up, which is pretty cool. A little sticker there. Some white pieces. You can see where the panel line helped bring out these lines that were in there. And this one has some clear plastic in the front, which is something that definitely could have been done in the front of these other weapons, I think. Just to sort of give it the impression of firing or charging up or whatever. But these are still pretty cool nonetheless. And the last bit of armament for this guy is this backpack. So we have a single mounting point, and I did compare this to Judge. This is not compatible with Judge. They have a different way of connecting. We have these arms up here and points that rotate. Lots of nice detail. I actually like this piece here because it is simply a dome that snaps in there to cover it up, give it some detail. But it's all articulated. We have articulation here, here, and we have these sort of tail fin thruster pieces here. These also move, so we can move the thrusters as well and direct them, and the little fins in between. So there's plenty to move and organize on this guy for setting it up. And then there is one last accessory. And honestly, this might be the best stand I have ever encountered. So we have one additional piece here. These change out, and of course I showed you in the back where it pops out. But what I really, really like about this is the fact that we have all this detail. And I mean, stands don't necessarily have to have much. A lot of stands are just clear plastic. But we have this really cool frame detail some areas that you could panel line if you want to, but what I really like about it is how it hides and utilizes its transformation feature. So you pop this piece out, and then you can telescope it. So that's pretty cool. But what I really liked was this top section, where if you push it through, I'm going to use a tool to do that just so I can make sure I get it all the way. When you push this joint in, you can then move this section. So it's just a cool way of locking and hiding something with a bit of detail without it looking like a stand. Like, this is something they should really start offering on its own with various ends here for using with Bandai and other brand model kits, just because this is such a cool stand, and it has these other areas you could actually move it between, so that you can maybe, if it's going to be in flying position, have more counterbalance or whatever. I really enjoy the stand. I think it's really good design. There's some clever engineering in here, and I want to see more of this sort of thing in gunpla. Let's go ahead and do a couple comparisons just to see how the basic robot mode stacks up. Now here we have him next to the Gravity Judge, which was one of my favorite things I gotten last year. And there are, of course, things I prefer about Gravity Judge. One being the build itself. That was far more enjoyable. And I still love the aesthetic more than most mecha designs. That said, Gravity Judge's hands are garbage, at least in comparison to most mecha. And the hands on Ruli are just awesome. Then on the right here, we do have a modern master grade Bandai kit. I don't have any metal frames from them, so this will be the best way to do. And of course, these guys are much bigger than Barbados, which is a pretty big mech on its own. But of course, the Barbados actually had to dull coat him to really make it look good, where these other two don't necessarily need that. I think the level of mattness that their plastic came with is suitable. I think Ruling is a little bit more glossier than I'd like. I think I'd like it just be another shade or two on the duller side, but it's still really good as is with just a little bit of panel lining. But as far as size comparisons go and accessories, Ruling does pack a lot. If you're familiar with my channel, I like to explore all the different configurations when a toy comes with lots of options. You've already seen the base figure, so here's the figure with just the backpack. Here is Ruling holding his weapons. Here you can see there's a brace that allows him to hold the long cannon. It attaches to the lower part of the arm. It has to be combined with the pistol to work though, because that gives him the grip for his hand. Now here we have all the weapons placed in the back in default mode. I think this gives a really cool silhouette. It's almost like funnels in the back or thrusters or something. We have a lot of really cool stuff going on that really give this mech a dynamic, intimidating feeling when you look at it. Now one thing I will note about this mode, the long cannons that go on the side do not stay on very well. So I actually had to wedge a piece of construction paper between the peg so that it would actually hold firmer. It's just not thick enough. You might be able to apply glue or something else to the bracket, but just be note, it's not going to stay like this on its own without a little bit of assistance. And here we have Ruling in weapon ready mode. The frame itself actually holds up the weapons with no problem. It's all very stable, and it definitely looks like he's ready to strike. All the other joints, especially on the body, hold up very well. And lastly, we have Ruling in full attack mode with all the missile pods open. My final thoughts on this kit is I really think it's worth picking up. While I still love Judge more, and I think Bandai are the masters of designing the experience of building gunpla, IN's Era Plus offers a great looking kit that can be enjoyable if you're willing to take your time and get buried in the process. If you're too worried about the finished product, you're not going to enjoy it as much as if you sit there and focus on all the little details to make it look just right. The aesthetic is very interesting and unique. It takes some risk in the design, especially in the head, and produces something that will definitely stand out on your shelf. And like me, you can get yours at Show Z Store. I'll put a link in the description. So anyway, let us know in the comments below if Ruling is worthy of your collection. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.